Hey everybody, it's Kira and welcome back to my channel. So today I have my April wrap-up for you guys. So I read 4 books in the last month and they were all pretty amazing. So let's get straight to them. So the first 2 I'm going to talk about just together because they're the second and third book in the series. And that is, what are the titles? The Raven King and the King's Men. So these are the second and third books in the All for the Game series. It's about this boy named Neil who loves this sport named Exy, which is a made-up sport. But it's it's a hard sport to explain. But he gets recruited to play for this university team that is made up of a lot of misfits and just come from broken homes, and a lot of craziness ensues. So the second and third books. So the strange thing about this series is the first book is definitely the worst of the 3. So you go into the first book and you're meeting all these characters and stuff is happening, but you're kind of like, I don't really care, like, I don't know what's going on. And then you get into the second book and more stuff starts happening to do with Kevin and his background with this. In my head I keep calling them the mafia, but it's not specifically the mafia, but it's this like gang war kind of like creepy bad guy kind of situation. His like unintentional ties to that and how Neil fits into that world as well. And then the third book happens and you're like, oh my gosh, there is so much craziness going on, especially because the second book ends, I'm pretty sure it ends with spring break starting, and the stuff that happens for spring break, it's bad, very bad. And so the third book like takes all of that and like leads it to the end of the year. I feel like I'm not explaining this very well, but it's kind of hard to explain at the same time because I feel like you kind of just have to read them. The most fascinating thing is just the relationship between the different characters. So Neil is coming into this team that's really broken, and you kind of have like these 2 factions of there's this one group of boys like Andrew's crew, and then you kind of have everybody else. And so Neil ends up being kind of the glue that helps the team like mesh together really well. And so watching their not just their teamwork, but like also their interpersonal relationships with each other, and through like the things that happen throughout the year, like you really see them grow and become like actual friends and become a family. And the coach is amazing, and Andrew is just so fascinating, honestly. And Neil, you get to see him start to lower some of his own defenses as well throughout the books. And I don't know, they're just like very, very fascinating character studies on like how broken people can like help each other and kind of learning how to deal with that. I don't know. It's just very interesting. They're definitely not the most like well-written books ever, but they are like just interesting enough that you want to keep reading. So yeah, those are the first 2 books that I finished in the month of April. And then next up we have The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is book 2 in the Inheritance Game series, and spoilers for book 1. So end of book 1, we get the reveal that Tobias Hawthorne, or Toby, is like still alive, right? And that it's actually, I think we get the reveal in there that Toby is actually, what was his name? Harry, maybe? The homeless guy that Avery used to play chess with in the park. And so the second book just focuses on them, dealing with the fallout of like stuff that happened in the first book, but B, trying to find Toby and like realizing that like he's still alive and like who he is. And oh my goodness, this book, okay, spoilers are done, but this book has so many twists and turns. There's one part that it like kind of annoyed me, and maybe it was just because like I read it so fast, because these books like do generally move, like they're super fast paced. But there's this one thing that we're like, is this true or not? And honestly, it goes back and forth. Like, oh, we know this is true. And then it's like, no, actually, we've disproved it. It's not true. And then we're like, actually, that was false. It is true. And then we're like, wait, but maybe it's not true. And it was just like a little bit annoying for me to read. Again, maybe it's because I read it so fast. I think I read this book in like 24 hours. It was so good. And just like kept me reading. But so maybe it was that I was just reading it so fast that it felt very back and forth. But that was like the one thing that I was kind of annoyed about, was just the like super like emotional whiplash back and forth about this like really important thing that you have to find out. But then they're like, but is it actually? And you're like, it's just very annoying. But I loved Avery and Jameson. I love the two of them together. And I love her best friend, whose name I am blanking on, but yeah, it was just a lot of fun, and I'm very excited for the third book to come out in August. And then lastly, we have Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This is the first book by V.E. Schwab that I have read, and I've been meaning to read a V.E. Schwab book for like 4 years now, but I just haven't. So this one is her newest novel, and I happened to see it at the library, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna snatch that up. So it is about a girl named Olivia Pryor, I believe. Yeah, Olivia Pryor, and she is an orphan. She lives at this orphanage. It's kind of a, not historical fiction necessarily, but definitely a fantasy. But kind of takes place in the past as well, I guess. But anyway, she lives in this orphanage, and then she gets a letter that's from her uncle, and it's inviting her to Gallant. And we're like, we don't know what that is, but okay. So you find out that Gallant is actually this house set in like the country, and you find out too, her uncle has been dead for a year. So who wrote the letter to her? So it's about like magic and mystery, and Olivia can see ghouls, she calls them. They're kind of like ghosts. And she has her mother's journal that just is intercut with like these weird drawings, and she's trying to figure out like what the heck was going on with her mom. Like, was her mom like going crazy before she like left Olivia at the orphanage? Like, she doesn't know what's going on. And so then she gets to Gallant, and she finds out she has a cousin, and then there's 2 caretakers who live at the house, and so she ends up staying there and kind of discovering all of the magic and the secrets that this house holds. And the cover is an indication of kind of what you can find in this book. But yeah, it was really cool, really amazing. And they have like the drawings in here too of like that were in her mother's journal. So it's really neat. And then like there's this part too where she figures out what the journal is. So in the beginning of the book, you just have like journal pages at like the beginning of some chapters. But then once Olivia figures out what the journal is actually saying, like what it's talking about, it actually has a section in here that's just the journal straight through, which I thought was so neat. So you get to see like, once we as readers, as well as Olivia, like know what this means, we can then like read through the whole thing and be like, oh, okay, like I get it. This is really cool. So I really appreciated that. The writing was beautiful, and I very much want to read more of V.E. Schwab. And yeah, it was just a really fun time, and just really magical and enjoyable. So that's it. Those are all the books that I read in the month of April. Comment down below, let me know if you've read any of these and what your thoughts were on them. If you've read All for the Game, how did you find it? And then like, what do you think of the books and their order, and like, do you enjoy the first book? Because I remember reading the first book and being like, I don't know if I'm going to continue this, but it's one of my friend's favorites. And so I was like, okay, I guess I will keep going. And then I like, by the end of it, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm totally invested in this. So I would love to know your thoughts on All for the Game as well. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to follow me on social media, all my links will be in the description as always. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.